Okay, so the point of this video is to go back over sentence patterns 1 through 4. Now, it's not designed to replace the weeks we spent in class learning the patterns, but it's nice if you need a review, if you missed a day, things like that. So, let's begin with sentence pattern number 1. Okay, so pattern 1. Now, remember there are 8 patterns. We're going to start with 1. Now, remember, pattern 1 looks like this. Period. Okay? Now, if you remember correctly, this flat line, that indicates it's an independent clause, which means it's like a sentence that can stand on its own, basically. So, a pattern 1 would be, all it is it's an independent clause with a period. So it could be, he ran, period. It could be, the cat yawned, period. Okay? It could be, I love to go to school. So they're not always super short, but it's just one idea. That's what's important to remember. It is one idea. One thought, one idea is a pattern 1. So easy to remember. Pattern 1 is in a lot of ways the easiest pattern. Now, pattern 1 gets a little tricky in one way because you can have omitted information. Now remember, omitted information is when you have information that you could live without. So how about this? The cat, Sophie, yawned. Now, Sophie is not needed information. I could hide that, and I could say the cat yawned, and that would be a perfectly acceptable sentence. That means Sophie is not necessary. Therefore, this is what we call omitted information. So let's do another example of a sentence pattern 1 with omitted information. The book, Harry Potter, was excellent. Okay? Now, if you took out Harry Potter, the book was excellent. That stands on its own, right? So that is not needed, therefore it is called omitted information. So a pattern 1, the book Harry Potter was excellent. Now you put commas around the omitted information to kind of tell the reader it's not, you take a break there and this part is omitted. So let's take them out and read it. It's really awkward. The book Harry Potter was excellent. You just read it through and it's a little more confusing than if you use the commas. So it's important in English grammar that you always put the commas there. So let's do one more and then we'll move on from pattern 1. The students, Devin, was a hard worker. Okay, so there is another example of pattern 1. Devin is omitted information because it's not necessary. So let's go ahead and move on from pattern 1. Let's go on to pattern 2. Okay, pattern 2. That is, bam. So you have an independent clause. You have a comma, you have a fanboys, and another independent clause. Period. Make that smaller so it's all on its own line. Okay, that's what a pattern 2 looks like. So let's do a couple of examples. Remember, the fanboys are they're like your connecting words. So they stand for and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. That's the fanboys. You should remember those. We went over that a lot. So let's try one. This one is pattern 2. It has 2 complete thoughts. So pattern 2 has 2 complete thoughts. Pattern 1 has 1 complete thought. So let's do this. I just keep thinking of animals today because I'm like surrounded by a bunch of them. I have a bird and 2 cats in this living room. It's kind of weird. Anyway, so the cat was napping, but she woke up for food. Okay? So the cat was napping. Could that be its own sentence? Yes. She woke up for food. Could that be its own sentence? Yes. Put them together and slap a fanboys in the middle, and you have yourself a pattern 2. Let's try another one. Okay. The cats liked each other, and I can't type today. And sometimes they played together. Okay? So the cats liked each other. That could be its own sentence. Sometimes they played together. That could be its own sentence. Put a fanboys in the middle, and you have a pattern 2. Again. Let's try another one. Okay. How about it's easier in class because I can just call on you to come up with the sentences. I love to play volleyball, yet I am always relieved when the season is over. So, I love to play volleyball. That, you can underline that. That's its own independent clause. I am always relieved when the season is over. That's its own independent clause. We have a fanboys in the middle, which is yet, and a comma right there. That comma is absolutely necessary. And now we have another pattern 2. Now let me give you an example of what not to do, okay? This doesn't count. I love sports and food. Why doesn't that one work? Okay, let's look at this. Is this an independent clause? Yes, so let's put an underline there. Is this a comma and a fanboys? Yes, that's there. Food. Could that be its own sentence? No, you cannot have food. That's not a sentence. There's no subject doing a verb. So, this, if that was a sentence, it would just be, I love sports and food. There is no comma there. Okay? So, I see, the most common mistake I see with the pattern 2 is people putting an incomplete clause on this side of the fanboys. So make sure there's 1 complete clause here, 1 independent clause here, and then there's a fanboys in the middle. Okay? So pattern 1 and pattern 2 we use on a daily basis. Okay? Let's move on to pattern 3. Your pattern 3 looks like this. Comma. Now what this means, this is code for not something that could not stand alone as a sentence. So if you remember right, you have phrases and dependent clauses here. So this is a phrase or a dependent clause. And this is going to be your independent clause, or something that could stand alone as a sentence. So let me show you what this would look like. Okay. After the game. That's not a sentence. There is no subject doing a verb, so that is a phrase. Okay, after the game. But if I put a comma here, and I put, I went home, period. I went home. That is an independent clause. So that can go right there, and that becomes a pattern 3. Let's do another one. Because of my job, I have a lot less time with family. Okay? So because of my job, there is no subject doing a verb there, so that cannot stand on its own. Therefore, it's the dashed line. Okay? And then we have, I have a lot less time with my family. That is an independent clause. That could be its own sentence, right? So that will be its own, that'll be right there, comma, slap them together with a comma in between. Okay? Let's try one more. Pattern 3 is a toughie. I would say this is actually the one that I see students make mistakes on the most. So it's really hard for me to teach you on a video because I can't answer questions. But this is kind of like a nice review, I guess, if you forgot a little bit. So let's try another one. Instead of hamburger, tonight I want, what do I want for supper? Pizza for supper. So instead of hamburger, tonight I want pizza for supper. So instead of hamburger, that's not a sentence. Tonight I want pizza for supper. Could that be its own sentence? Sure. That could be its own independent clause, its own sentence. So I put them together with a comma in between, and I have pattern 3. Okay? Ask questions about this in class if you are stuck, because that's one of them that is a little bit tougher, and I will definitely be more than happy to help you out with if you're struggling on that one. Okay? So pattern 4. Pattern 4 is, in my opinion, one of the easiest, just because... Okay, so pattern 4 I often consider actually one of the easiest patterns because you are taught it so much in school, especially elementary school. So your pattern 4 is your short list. So here I have shown you the code for it. So it's the solid line with a couple commas in between each thing. So if you're going to say, for my birthday, I would like a new game console, and some makeup, and books. Okay, so between each thing, I have a comma to show it's like a short list. It's something else that I want. So for my birthday, I would like a new game console, comma, some makeup, comma, and some books. So always commas between there on a short list. So let's try another one. For dinner, I want apples. Why do I want apples for dinner? I don't like apples. Whatever. Okay, for dinner, okay, we're going to change it. For dinner, I want apple pie, pizza, and Pepsi. Pepsi's capitalized because it's a proper noun. So for dinner, I want apple pie, comma, pizza, comma, and Pepsi. It's a very, very unhealthy dinner, but it's some of my favorite foods, so who really cares? Okay, my favorite sports are volleyball, basketball, and football. Okay, so I have commas in between each thing to show I am talking about something new. So that's pretty basic. I think you all were pretty familiar with pattern 4 when I taught it in class. So I hope that that's just a nice review for you.